Well, to what extent is it okay to love yourself first or to put yourself first in a relationship, especially in a marriage? And this is just so powerful because this is such a common belief that it's somehow selfish to love yourself first, to take care of yourself and to take care of yourself first, that it's like we believe there's a limited amount of love that we have. And so if I give myself love, I have less love to give other people. And I think this is so cool because the opposite is actually true. And what I want to argue to you guys here today is I actually don't think it's possible to love another person until you love yourself first. So I actually think it's really selfish to not practice self-love. I think we have it wrong. Self-love isn't selfish. Not loving yourself is selfish. And let me show you why. When you don't love yourself, you are constantly trying to manipulate other people. And I know that sounds harsh, and you're out there like, you're like, well, but I love my husband, or I love my boyfriend or girlfriend, and I want to make them happy, right? I want to have a happy relationship, and I do all of these things because I love them. It's often not actually true. What we do in relationships when we don't love ourselves is we try to feel good through the other person. So all of those emotions, oh, hi Kitty, thank you for commenting. I needed this today. I always put everyone else first, but lately I'm really struggling with it. Yeah. So, okay guys, here's what happens when we put other people first. We end up feeling resentful, we end up feeling frustrated, and then we end up feeling like ashamed and guilty. And I hear, especially from women, but I know this comes up for men too, but I just think the way we're socially conditioned, it's more common for women. People get so frustrated with their partners. They're like, he never cleans up his socks. He doesn't help with the dishes. He doesn't feed the dog. He doesn't help with my kid, right? He acts like a big kid himself. It's like I'm just the mom to the whole family. I hear this frustration and resentment coming out a lot, and this is where it comes from. When you don't love yourself first, when you don't put yourself first, you don't feel good, right? You don't feel loved. You don't feel happy. You don't feel calm, and you often don't feel safe if you don't have that wellspring of love for yourself. So you are seeking those emotions and those feelings, and you believe that you get them through other people. You believe that you need somebody else to make you feel loved, to make you feel safe, to make you feel happy or satisfied. And so we go around and we try to manipulate our husbands and our wives and our children and our friends into doing things so that we can feel better. It's like when, if I believe, well, if my husband would just pick up his socks, then I would get to relax and take care of myself. Or if he would just help with the kids, or if he would just back me up and support me in my parenting, then I would feel supported and cared for and heard. Right? Like we're looking for other people to change who they are, to change their behavior, to change their words, so that I can feel okay. I need my kids to pick up their clothes and wake up on time for school. I need my husband to cook dinner twice a week and take out the trash and do the laundry. Right? We're like, I need these people to do things. I need him to speak in a different tone of voice. I need my boss to listen to me and appreciate the hard work I do. Right? So when this is all coming out of a lack, an internal lack, it's this feeling that we don't have what we need. And so we need other people to change. We need other people to act the right way, to say the right things, to appreciate us the right way, to recognize us, to tell us that we're good enough, that we are lovable, that we are beautiful. We need other people to make us aware of that, prove it to us over and over and over, so that we can feel okay. But what ends up happening is that we're constantly trying to change other people. Instead of loving my husband for who he is, as the man he is who doesn't pick up his socks, I try to change him into somebody else. I try to make him somebody who picks up his socks because I think somehow that would make me feel okay. And in doing this, it's not loving to him. So when I don't have self-love, when I am not able to provide happiness, calm, love, and peace to me, what I end up doing is trying to change somebody else to get those feelings for myself, which is incredibly selfish, right? We go around trying. Really, I'm using the word manipulate on purpose, you guys, because I know it's an uncomfortable word, and none of us want to think that we manipulate somebody else, especially not somebody we love, especially not our partners or our children. But we do this all the time. We are constantly trying to change the people we love, to make them be better in some way so that I can feel okay. What is more selfish than that? I want you to be different than you are. I want you to change for me so that I can be loved, so that I can be happy, so that I can be calm and supported and at peace. This is all about me, right? This is not me loving you. This is certainly not unconditional love. This is me trying to change you, trying to make you like fit this like perfect model of what I need so that I can be okay. This is what happens when you don't love yourself. And this is why I think cultivating self-love first is absolutely essential to having a happy marriage, happy relationship, enjoying your family, right? I think this is true with dating too. If you're looking for it from outside of yourself, you end up being incredibly selfish. When you don't love yourself first, you are constantly out there making everything about you. Everything anyone else does or says becomes about you when you don't love yourself. When you do love yourself, let's look at what happens then. So many people are like, well, if I put myself first, if I love me first, then I'm not going to care about anybody else. But this is like one of those kind of thought twists that like messes with us. And I think a good example is weight loss, because this has been documented a lot, and you can look this up, and it's really interesting. A lot of people believe that if they love their body now, if I'm trying to lose weight and I love my body now, a lot of people believe that loving that body, they'll stop wanting to lose weight. It's like, well, I'll just stay fat forever if I love my body now. So I have to hate my body in order to diet to lose weight. And what they have found over and over and over again is when people do the work to love the body they have now, they have such an easier time dieting and exercising and losing weight, because when you love your body and you truly love it, you stop punishing it. You start doing things that feel good. You don't binge eat and lay on the couch and watch TV all day because it doesn't feel good. You love your body, and it's easy when you love it to nourish it with good foods. It's easy to move in ways that feel good to your body. The same is true with self-love. Self-love doesn't make you disregard everyone else. It makes it easier to love everyone else, because when you love yourself, you don't have to get it from out there. You're not constantly seeking validation and love and attention and affection and proof that you are worthy from everyone around you. You're not making everything out there mean something about you. You just know. You're like, yeah, I am good enough. I am worthy. Sometimes I have uncomfortable emotions, and I'm not mean to myself about that. Sometimes I get anxious. Sometimes I make mistakes. I'm human. I love myself anyway. Here I am. When that's your attitude, then when your husband doesn't pick up his socks or do the dishes, like, it doesn't mean anything about you. When your kids get bad grades or get in a fight at school, you don't make it mean that you're a bad parent or a bad mom. When you freak out and yell at your husband about not picking up his socks because you had a long day at work, you don't make that mean that you're a bitchy bad partner who doesn't love yourself. You're just like, yeah, I'm human. This was my day. When you show up from that place of knowing your own worth, of loving yourself, and of being kind to yourself no matter what, your relationships with everyone else get so easy because you suddenly notice that none of it's about you. Right? What your husband does isn't about you. What your wife does isn't about you. What your boss said in his email isn't about you. Because most of us are not coming from a place of self-love. Your partner probably isn't. Your children probably haven't learned how. Your boss certainly isn't, right? Almost everyone is out there in that place where they don't love themselves, and so they are seeking that external validation from other people. And remember how selfish that is? right? When I am looking for everyone else to prove to me that I'm okay and that I'm worthy, that's where most of us are. We're all walking around in these very self-absorbed bubbles because we don't love ourselves. When you do, all of that just eases up and lets go. You're like, yeah, I'm here. I'm worthy. I'm a human. I love me. Good days, bad days. I'm not going to be mean to myself. Everyone else in your life now, you let them be who they are. And I'm not saying that like you don't ask for things. You can still ask your husband to feed the dog and take out the trash. But if he doesn't, you don't have all this emotional drama about it. Because you don't make it mean that he doesn't love you. You don't make it mean that you married the wrong person. You don't make it mean that he doesn't respect you, right? Because that's where we go with this. We're like, well, if he respected me, if he was a good partner, if he really loved me, he would do X, Y, and Z. But no, like when you just know that you are lovable, that you are a good partner, that you are worthy no matter what, then like he just didn't pick up his socks, right? He had some thoughts about that, or thoughts about other things more likely, and he doesn't care, and you don't make it mean anything about you or anything about him. And it all just becomes okay. And yeah, like maybe you pick up the socks, maybe you don't, maybe you ask again, but you do it without that emotional drama because it doesn't mean that you aren't worthy of respect, that you aren't worthy of love. You don't make it mean anything about you because that is the truth. What other people do in your life doesn't mean anything about you. You are the only one who can give yourself that inherent self-worth. You're the only one who can recognize how incredible you are. I mean, other people can recognize how incredible you are, but you're the only one who can believe it for yourself. Because this is the other thing about self-love. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter how much other people love you, you won't believe it. Like, I think we've all had this experience when, like, you hate your haircut or you hate an outfit and somebody compliments you on it and you're like, what's wrong with them? Like, it looks awful. Like, it doesn't matter how many times they tell you your new haircut is amazing. If you hate it, you're not going to believe it. And the same is true with self-love. If you don't love yourself, it doesn't matter how much or how well other people love you, you're still not going to feel love because you don't believe it. You don't believe you're worthy of love. Guys, I'm going to take a peek in the comments here. Looks like we've got one. Kitty says, I really thought I loved myself, but this has made me question things a lot because this is me you're describing. Yeah, Kitty, I want to just tell you, you are not alone in this. Like, this is where I was not very long ago, and this is where I talk to so many people about this stuff, and I hear this over and over. Like, let me tell you a little bit about what brought me into the work I do because it might be helpful for you. My husband has struggled with depression on and off for many years. And on top of that, he's the guy who just does not pick up his socks. Like that's me. And so for a long time, I struggled. I had a lot of anxiety. And in my relationship, I took everything so personally. And I found myself like wanting to change him, and not just the socks, but also the depression, like needing to fix it, needing to make it better. And I created so much emotional pain and drama for myself. And I was either in anxiety mode and like overdoing and people pleasing and like putting myself out there and like trying to make everything great, or I was in this like angry, resentful place where I was just like, ah, nobody respects me and I have to take care of everything and you never help and like if you would just X, Y, and Z, then everything would be fine. Like I was in just such a cycle of either like high anxiety where I wasn't enough and I had to do everything, or everybody else wasn't enough and I was angry and resentful. And it was just miserable and it felt out of control. And what I discovered is that there was no amount, it didn't matter. Like even if my husband changed and did all the things I wanted him to do, one, he wouldn't be the man I married anymore, right? Like we are attracted to people because of who they are, and that encompasses the things we love about them and the things we'd like to be different about them. But if we could change the things we want to be different, I don't think we'd have the same person we loved, right? Like I don't want to be married to like a perfect robot who like does everything right and cleans everything up and, you know, takes care of everything and washes all the dishes. Like, no, I want to be married to the beautiful, creative, crazy, amazing, confident man that I married. And it's all part of who he is. But I wasn't able to see that and love him for who he was when I was really mad about the socks, really stressed out about the days he had some depression come up, right? So I had to figure out that it's this inner work, it's the learning why I don't love myself, which for all of us is because of our thoughts. If you don't love yourself, it's because of the things you're thinking about yourself, that you believe are true about yourself, or that you're afraid might be true. Things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not confident enough, I'm not worthy enough. And that's at the root. And the work to love yourself is figuring out what those thoughts are, how they're playing out in your life, and then slowly figuring out how to let them go. How to realize that those are optional thoughts that you do not have to believe about yourself. How to release them and choose to think other things on purpose. And I am definitely oversimplifying this. That's not totally true. It's that simple. You have to identify the thoughts causing you pain, see how they're causing you pain so that you can let them go, choose new thoughts that create the love for yourself you want to have, and practice them to make those a new belief system for yourself, one in which you love yourself completely and fully. It is that simple. That's it. But it's not that easy. It takes work, and it takes a lot of courage and willingness to feel uncomfortable, to feel negative emotion, to get to know your brain and your heart, and to learn to process things, and to start to let go of some really deep-seated beliefs. This is the work that I do with my clients, is helping them to find, there's some really good tools and models that we can use to help people understand and find those thoughts, start to release them, start to reframe them, and start to feel differently about themselves. That's the work that I do with my clients. Guys, I'm just going to revisit the comments a little here. Bonnie, thank you for being here. Patience, thank you. Bonnie says, I'm always looking for people in my life to validate me, to show they love me. Yeah, and Bonnie, something I'd like to know is, does it work? Right? When we look for people in your life to validate you, to prove they love you, what happens? Right? Does it work for you? Because sometimes they do, right? Sometimes they do the right thing. And for a moment, you're like, okay, I'm good. My question for you is, how long does that last? Does it last a few minutes? Does it last a day? Does it last a week? Like, if you don't love yourself, if you're looking for somebody else to validate you so that you can feel loved, you have to constantly get that validation. And it has a time where it expires for each of us. For some of us, it's like, okay, they made me feel loved. They told me how smart and beautiful and amazing I am. They complimented how gorgeous my house is, or how good my kids are, or how much my husband appears to love me, right? And I'm like, some of us feel good for 5 minutes, and then we need more. It's like, I got a little hit of dopamine. Somebody gave me a little dopamine hit, and now I need more. Others were like, okay, I get to feel good about myself for 3 days, right? 3 days is probably a long time if you don't have much self-love. But the point is that if you don't love yourself, you are going to constantly need that reassurance for other people. Your brain's going to have a formula. It's going to be like, well, we have to get validation every 3 hours in order to know that we're worthy and lovable. But the truth is that you can't, these aren't things that exist outside of you. And you have to start questioning your brain, like, what does it mean to be worthy? How does somebody earn worthiness? How do I know? And your brain probably has an answer. It's probably like, well, people tell you you're worthy. It's like, okay, well, how often do I have to hear I'm worthy? And your brain's gonna be like, well, every 3 hours, right? This is the inquiry into your own mind. Like, what is your brain's belief about how you earn worth and how you have to do that? And you'll find that you're constantly going out and you're trying to get that validation from other people to kind of fit the schedule. And when you fail, because inevitably at some point you will, because you can't control other people, which is highly unfortunate, but very true. So when somebody doesn't give you that validation you need, now you feel like crap, right? Now you feel depressed. Now you feel anxious. Now you feel overwhelmed. And you don't get to feel good again until you get it from somewhere. And I think this is where so much anxiety comes from. Anxiety most commonly comes from trying to control things that are outside of your control. And other humans, what they say and do is outside of your control, right? I wish it weren't. Again, like if I had the magic wand and I could just be like, make everybody do and say the things I want, obviously that would be the easier way. Instead of examining your own mind, learning to get control of and work with your thoughts and your feelings, that's scarier and harder. Well, it's not harder because it's impossible to control other people, but it's scarier. And so our default is like, well, I want to control other people. I want to just make them make me feel loved. Like, is that so wrong? Like, no, it's not so wrong, but it doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. You try to control other people to feel the way you want to feel, and when they don't, you feel like crap and you're always out of control. And that out of control creates so much pain and so much anxiety. Okay, guys, a few more comments. Kitty, is it possible to think you are amazing and love yourself, yet your subconscious doesn't? Yes. Okay. So I like this. This is such a cool thing about the human brain. And Brenda, thank you for being here too. Is it possible to think you're amazing and love yourself, but your subconscious doesn't? Yes. Yes. So this seems odd to us, but the human brain is absolutely capable of holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time. So you can believe, I am amazing and I love myself, and you can also believe, I'm a piece of crap and I'm not worthy of love. And you're like, well, that's like believing it's day and night at the same time. It's obviously not true. It doesn't matter. Brains are incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful, and incredibly simplistic and gullible at the same time. You are absolutely capable of holding two different thought patterns that don't make sense. Your brain has no problem with that. And it's interesting, what all that's happening is you have two different neural pathways in your brain, and you've learned them probably at different times in your life. The pathway that says, I don't love myself, or I'm not worthy of love, or I need constant proof to believe I'm worthy of love, that part has been programmed at some point, probably really early in your childhood. I mean, if you think about where these thoughts come from, like even in school, like we're always, there's the red pen marking on your paper telling you that you didn't do a good job, right? And there's like, I don't know about you guys, I was one of those kids who like really wanted to do well in school, and getting bad grades was like really emotional, and I felt terrible. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Like we learn that in school, that if we don't get approval from the teacher, if we don't get the smiley face sticker and the star, if we get the red pen, we take that to mean something. It's like, oh, I'm bad. Not just I didn't do well or I didn't understand this. It's like, oh, I'm bad. Oh, I'm stupid. Oh, I failed. Right, this is really an inherent part of our schooling. It's also something that we learn from the movies, from books, from social media, even fairy tales. Like we create such, as a society, these ideals of like the ideal woman, the ideal marriage, the ideal husband, like who we should be. And social media is bad for it too. And honestly, we're all guilty on social media for contributing to this, because tell me that you don't just put your best moments on social media, right? I know some of us are better about putting our hard times too, but for the most part on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, you just see like, okay, not Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, you just see everybody's happy, smiling, beautiful face. It's like the best version of them. So we get this like really ingrained belief that this is who you should be, and we're constantly measuring ourselves up against that and finding that we're not tall enough or blonde enough or fit enough or smart enough. Like we don't fit this ideal that doesn't actually exist. It's just this like communal fantasy we have about what a woman should be like, or what a man should be like, or what a family should be like. And then we're measuring ourselves. So these like beliefs that you aren't good enough or aren't worthy enough or aren't pretty enough, whatever it is for you, they're really, really ingrained from a very young age. So that's one neural pathway, firing, firing, firing. Like Bonnie's saying, yeah, my mother wasn't a loving person and my family wasn't close. Okay, so you didn't have a good model, right? You didn't necessarily have a parent telling you, I love you, I love you, I love you all the time. So maybe you never learned to think that about yourself. That's one way that you can have a neural pathway get built. That's a very small child. So there's the pathway that we're calling the subconscious right now, Kitty, that's like the subconscious pathway that doesn't believe I'm worthy of love or that I love myself. And that's an old pathway. It's been spinning for a long time, and it gets like triggered to refire a lot. You look at social media and maybe that pathway tells you that, a beautiful woman is a size 2, 5'9", blonde. Every time you look in the mirror, you notice that that's not you. That neural pathway fires. The I don't love myself pathway. The you aren't good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough pathway fires. it fires every time you're on social media and you notice that, I don't know, you're looking at Instagram and all of like the beautiful beachy pictures of people who are traveling the world and working from their computers, and you're like, oh, I'm not successful enough. And that pathway fires. These people all made it work and I'm not making it work. That pathway fires. But you're also doing some work on yourself, right? You're trying to cultivate self-love. You're trying to have compassion for yourself. And so you've been learning, you've been intentionally creating new neural pathways. This is where you were saying, like, is it possible to think I'm amazing and love myself, but my subconscious doesn't? So like, you've created it intentionally, I'm guessing, that you have been working on purpose to believe that you love yourself, to prove to yourself how amazing you are, because that's where you want to show up, right? That's who you want to be. So you've made a new neural pathway, right? And you're firing it on purpose. I'm amazing. I love myself. That thought's in there. That old pathway is still functioning, right? That one that you learned a long, long time ago. Your brain is absolutely capable of believing both thoughts, even though they completely contradict each other. And that can feel stressful. And I think what I hear from a lot of people is they're like, well, I know that I'm amazing and I should love myself, but I don't feel it. It's like we think there's this disconnect between what I know intellectually and how I really feel. And that's not actually true. And I want to get rid of that idea. And I think the subconscious is kind of the same thing. It's like, well, my subconscious doesn't believe it. Both of those beliefs, my subconscious doesn't believe it or I just don't feel it, those make it really hard to change because they're very disempowering. When you think, well, my subconscious just doesn't believe I love myself, like, what do you do about that, right? Like, it's your subconscious. By nature, you can't like get in there and talk to it. Maybe you need a hypnotist. There are ways to access your subconscious, right? But that belief that it's your subconscious kind of just like it takes away your ability to do anything about it. And so I don't think it's a useful way of thinking about it. The truth is that you believe two thoughts. You have a new thought that you've been practicing. I'm amazing and I love myself. You have an old set of thoughts that still is running in your brain. That's it. You have two different neural pathways firing. It's not your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. It's just two different neural pathways that fire sometimes. Because when that's the case, there's a way to change it. The way to change it is to fire the intentional pathways more, which means practicing the thoughts about yourself being amazing and loving yourself. And I'm going to come back to that because you can't just start thinking those thoughts and want them to work if you don't believe them. And I'll explain that in just a second. But there's a new neural pathway. You have to practice it more. And you also have to start to unravel the old one. So as long as you really believe those old thoughts, they're going to keep coming up for you, those like subconscious that doesn't really love you. It's going to keep happening. So you've got to start to disbelieve those thoughts. And that's where inquiry and questioning your beliefs comes into play. Because you've got to go in and really examine, what are those thoughts? Do you even know? Like, especially when you call it your subconscious, it makes me think that you're really not fully aware of what those thoughts are. So the subconscious part of you that doesn't love you, doesn't have that self-love, we've got to get in there and find out, like, what does it believe? What are those thoughts? In what ways does it think you're not good enough, that you're not worthy? In what ways does it believe that you need other people to validate you? We've got to get in there and find out. And then we have to start to show your mind that those thoughts are optional, that they're not strictly true. They are not the absolute truth of the universe. They are optional thoughts that are affecting your life in negative ways, that are holding you back in your relationships, that are holding you back in your business. Right? So we've got to get in there and find out what they are, and then we have to start to dismantle them, while at the same time practicing those new thoughts. And that is how you let go of that, like, well, I don't feel it, but I think it. Or that's how you let go of the subconscious not loving you, even though you know that you should love yourself. Okay, so Kitty is going to share a little more. Let me just read this for a moment, Kitty. I'm a performer, so I've created a persona that I love, and I've achieved incredible things within limits. That's awesome. I did when I was younger academically, too, to prove I was worthy. So I hear what you're saying. Yeah, academics, you guys, like, you can say a lot of things about our school system, but, like, it teaches us to, like, hustle for some validation, right? When I'm Jen Ashton, I feel different from when I'm Kitty Campari. So that's kind of cool. Kitty, I'd love to talk to you about this. this performer persona. So you've actually, in acting, kind of created a whole nother person, right? You get to step into and become somebody new. And it sounds like maybe you're finding that it's like easier to love yourself in that other persona, which makes sense because you got to create that persona without all that childhood baggage that we got in school and stuff, right? Kitty Campari has all this old thoughts to deal with, and Jen Ashton just gets to be whoever she wants to be. It is totally possible to reconcile these parts of your brain, and it is definitely possible. Like, you've already got great practice at creating new neural pathways. Like when you imagine this other persona that you're stepping into, I know you're doing this as a performer, but this is really what you want to, like, if you want to change your life, if you want to change your love life or your business life, you have to do the same thing. You have to really fully imagine the person you want to become. What do they believe? What do they think? What would you have to believe and think in order to achieve what you want to achieve? Who would you have to become to truly love yourself? What would have to happen on that journey? Just like you're creating this Jen Ashton persona for your performance. Who is Kitty Campari in 5 years? Who is Kitty Campari in love? Who would that, like, what would you have to believe to become the Kitty Campari that you want to be? Right? That's where there's like two levels. The work is like imagining who you are, the you that fully loves yourself, the things that they believe about you, understanding fully who that person is and practicing those beliefs. And the other part is like dismantling may be a strong word, but who you are now and the beliefs that are limiting your self-love now. How do you do that work? How do you dismantle those beliefs? How do you question them? Right? And that's where I think coaching can be really powerful for a lot of people, is those beliefs can feel so true. It's like, well, how do I let go of that? It's like obvious, and I've known it since I was 5. I need other people to validate me, right? I know I feel like crap when I don't get the star on my paper. So there's two levels. There's a dismantling the old beliefs and questioning them, and then there's like a fully imagining and stepping into the person you want to become who fully loves yourself. You guys, I'm just going to circle back around to the topic that we started on today. Is self-love selfish? And I just want to encourage everyone to really consider that this is the single most valuable thing that you can do, not just for yourself, but for the people you love. Because when you don't cultivate that self-love, when you don't take ownership of how you feel, when you don't take responsibility for creating your own happiness, your own peace, your own joy, you become selfish. A lot of people ask me, is loving myself first selfish? No, it is the opposite. Not loving yourself first is the most selfish thing you can do. Bonnie, love your advice. Looking forward to better myself. Going to work on my not attractive self. I believe I can't find the right person to come into my life. Yeah, Bonnie. So and this is a case where you're like, well, is it selfish to work on me first? You've got to do the work on, there's like 2 levels, right? There's loving you and fully believe, like if you really believed that you were like the most amazing, lovable person, if you truly loved yourself, how would you show up differently in your dating life and in your love life? Right? What would you believe? If you really believe that, you'd be like, everybody wants to be with me. I'm incredible, right? And you'd be putting that out into the world, and you'd be putting that out into every connection you make and every person you talk to. And then there's the other level for you is, I believe I can't find the right person to come into my life. This is maybe a topic for a whole nother live, and we can get into this. I'm going to do a live tomorrow also, you guys, also at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Maybe we'll talk about this, Bonnie, because I think it's a fascinating topic. I can't find the right person to come into my life. When you believe that, what happens is, like, so brains have this thing called cognitive bias, and it's just that we look for evidence to prove what we already believe to be true. So if your brain holds a belief, it's constantly trying to prove that to itself. And I'll get into this in more detail if we talk about this tomorrow. But what happens when you believe I can't find the right person to come into my life, your brain's like, okay, that's true. That's what we believe. I can't find the right person. So everyone you meet, your brain is already looking for evidence that they're not the right person. And even if you met somebody who would be fabulous for you, your brain would probably discount them. It would find a reason to write them off because that doesn't fit with its reality. Reality, your brain thinks it's describing reality when it says, I can't find the right person to come into my life. Your brain's like, that's just reality. So if that person does show up, that like, there's like a dissonance, it doesn't jive. Like, that's not my story of reality, this can't be right, I'm gonna write this person off. And a lot of times when we believe these things, we find ourselves only attracted to people we can't have for one reason or another. People who are unavailable, who live too far away, like for whatever reason we can't be with them. And we're not attracted to the people who are available to us because our brain is like trying to fit our life to this story. And so it can be a bit of an adjustment to make, but the way to find the right person is to let go of the belief that you can't. And I know it's like, well, how do I do one without the other? Like, I'd have to find the right person to let go of the belief. But the truth is you have to let go of the belief to find the right person. So Bonnie, I love this. Thank you for that comment. Let's talk about this tomorrow. We will do a live on this at 1 o'clock tomorrow because it's such a cool thing to talk about. I'm going to come back to the self-love part, and I want to drive this home. The least selfish thing, the most selfless thing you can do, the best thing you can do for your family, for your partner, for your children, for the world, for your community, is to love yourself first. It is the most selfless thing you can do. When you do it, you will be able to allow others to be themselves. You will stop using them. A coach that I work with calls it a validation vending machine, that we use other people as a validation vending machine. And you can let go of that when you love yourself. You can actually start to love other people, and you stop being so obsessed with you. You're not looking for validation everywhere. And the things you start to see are pretty cool. Like when you don't need that from everyone else all the time, you actually get to start listening to other people and like hearing what they're experiencing without making it mean something about you. Like your whole world opens up, and you are so much more engaged and aware and attentive and empathetic to other people because you start to realize that like it's not about you and you're okay. You've got the love already. And now like you find this crazy curiosity about the world, and it is incredibly selfless. Like you stop thinking about yourself all the time when you love yourself. So I think it's just such a powerful journey and definitely not a selfish endeavor. Bonnie, I lost my husband of 26 years. Because of what you said before, I wanted to change him to feel he respected and loved me. We'll be here tomorrow. Bonnie, thank you so much for sharing. And yes, I am excited. We'll talk about this tomorrow because you are not alone here. And I don't know if you were here in the beginning of this live. I was there for a while too. And it's hard you cannot be in a happy relationship when you need somebody else to change for you to feel respected and loved. It definitely is something, there's always, relationships are a two-way street. There's always the role of both people. But I know that no individual can be happy in a relationship as long as they need the other person to change. And it is something that can cause us to leave relationships, to act in ways that drive our partners away. It creates a lot of pain in relationships for both of us, for both people, for both partners. And honestly, though, it's mostly for you. If you believe the other person needs to change for you to feel loved and respected, it creates a lot of suffering for you. And even the things that come out of that, right, that pain causes a lot of passive aggressive behavior, right? Sometimes it's like outwardly aggressive behavior, trying to make that other person change, like, either through yelling at them, through punishing them, through withholding sex, through not talking to them. There's a lot of silent treatment, I think, that goes on in marriages, through a lot of just like internal stewing. But like what that does, all of these things that we're like trying to do to make our partner change really just hurt me, right? When I'm doing all of those things, I feel anxious, I feel angry, I feel frustrated. Like it all hurts me and makes me miserable. It actually doesn't do that much to the other person, but they experience is like all based on their thoughts, right? That's what's creating their emotions. And I'm just over here stewing in my own mess of how they need to be different and I have to change them and it's not working. It's, yeah, it's hard to be loving, hard to be happy, hard to have a successful relationship from that place. But the great news is brains are powerful and beautiful and flexible, and they can change. So I don't care if it has been 50 years that you haven't loved yourself and that you have shown up in relationships trying to get validation from other people. It's been 2 months or 50 years of doing it that way, it doesn't matter. Your brain can still change. It can still learn to love itself. You can still learn to get some control over how you think and feel. You can still learn to take responsibility and ownership for your life, for your thoughts, for your feelings, for your experience. You can learn to love yourself at any age after any amount of practicing. Because even though we get these deeply ingrained neural pathways, the brain is just, I'm amazed. Every time I talk to people and work with people, like the plasticity, the flexibility of the mind, the ability to heal and to make new pathways, to have new thoughts, to have new beliefs, it's incredible. So I want you, Bonnie, especially as we're chatting here, to really have faith in your own ability to find the right person to come into your life and to love yourself, to love your attractive, amazing self. Because the brain is just like, it's like this amazingly powerful, awesome tool that we never get taught how to use, right? Like it can do all this crazy stuff, but it's just totally in default mode. And it's like a big computer that's just had a bunch of random people programming stuff in without us having any say in it. We've had this whole lifetime of people putting these thoughts and beliefs into our brains, and we just never learned that we had any say, that we could reject them or change them or believe something new. And at any point in your life, you can learn to believe something new, you can learn to love yourself, and that journey can be frustrating, it can be painful, it can be anxiety producing, and it is worth it. Because what you get is peace, is calm, is clarity, and the ability to actually connect with other people because you're not always worrying about you, right? You actually can have meaningful relationships because you can be interested genuinely in another human being because you're not making it mean anything about you. Okay, guys, I'm afraid I have to go. I do have a call with a client. Thank you so much for joining me, and let's do this tomorrow. Same time, tomorrow afternoon, we are going to talk about finding the right person to come into your life and this belief that you can't. And there's a couple different ways this shows up. A lot of people are like, well, there aren't people. Like there's like this scarcity of available good people. There's also the side that's like, well, I can't bring the right people into my life. It's something wrong with me. So it's either something wrong with them, like all the good people are taken, or it's something wrong with me where like I just can't bring them into my sphere, into my world. So amazing topic, Bonnie. Thank you so much for bringing it up. And I am really looking forward to chatting with you guys again tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy Sunday. All right, have a good day, everybody. And the self-love journey, one last thing to say, if anybody's undertaking this, it's easy to try to love yourself and then end up judging yourself for not loving yourself enough, if that makes sense. It's like when that subconscious comes up and you have the thoughts that are mean about yourself, I would encourage you, be gentle. Self-love is a process, and it is all about taking a little time it's all about being nice to yourself, is what it's about. So when you slip up and you're mean to yourself, don't be mean to yourself about that, right? It's like there's a lot of levels. When you fail at self-love, love yourself for that. Be like, yeah, I'm a human. There's my old thought pattern. Okay, that's it. I'm really going to go now, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here.